If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Hey! We're recording the podcast! Shut up!
Good morning to you, wherever you are, because it is Running the Wire for July 2nd, 2024. Happy birthday, B-Dunks. My name is Bernie Burns, sitting right over there, collecting her $1.1 million paycheck from the Mets every year. It's Ashley Burns. How you doing, Ash?
Yeah, not too bad. I think we're going to have a sports day.
I think today is going to be less of a sports day. Happy birthday to Barbara Tunkelman, by the way. Today's her birthday. She was birthed today. So right after Bobby Bonilla Day is B-Dunk Day.
And yesterday was Canada Day as well.
Former guest of this podcast, Barbara Dunkelman, is of Canadian descent, and she was weighing in on the Edmonton Oilers almost coming all the way back and winning the NHL Stanley Cup and losing to the Florida Panthers. So yesterday was Bobby Bonilla Day. I'm going to explain this really quickly to you because two of my favorite things in sports are sports business things. One is Bobby Bonilla Day, which happens every July 1st. That was yesterday, where he gets paid $1.19 million from the New York Mets every single year on July 1st between 2011 and 2035. And it stems from a deferred contract they had back in, I think, the year 2000. And he was owed about $5.9 million, but instead of taking all the money up front because they wanted to use it for some team rebuilding, he was not a great performer for the Mets. And instead of taking the money then, they said, well, years from now, we'll pay you this $1.19 million every year from 2011 to 2035.
So wait, he took like a 10-year deferral before they would even start paying him, and then they would pay him $1 million for like 25 years.
Right, which is why at the time it didn't seem like a big deal, right? It didn't seem like no one really batted an eyelash when this deal was made. Deferred contracts happen all the time, but now it becomes, for some reason, I guess because people want to make fun of the Mets, it becomes this thing where every year they talk about like, here's the people on the All-Star team who are making less than Bobby Bonilla in current dollars because he's just sitting on his butt somewhere. The crazy thing about it was I learned something. My other favorite business sports story, which was often called the best sports deal of all time. Do you remember the ABA, what the ABA was?
We're talking about basketball.
We're talking
now,
about
right?
now we switched over. We're talking about basketball.
Okay, I believe so. If I recall correctly, this was coming into forming the NBA. There was a couple of different groups, right? And then when they decided to form the NBA, they had to get rid of a couple groups.
Right. So
was it two teams?
There was the National Basketball Association, the American Basketball Association. So long story short, there was about 6 teams, I think, that were left in the ABA. It was a smaller league. The only thing I remember about them is they had a red, white, and blue ball. That was a big deal.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was like, it was kind of like, they were less established, but kind of like the XFL and the NFL. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It was like that kind of thing. And so the NBA said, we only want 4 of the teams. So we'll take these 4 teams, like the Denver Nuggets, the Indiana Pacers are 2 of those teams. But the 2 teams they left out were the Kentucky Colonels, who was actually owned by then the owner of Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the St. Louis Spirits, which is the important one. St. Louis Spirits were owned by these 2 brothers, and they were offered $3 million. And the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy took the $3 million and walked. These other guys struck this really convoluted deal where they took money up front for all the players who were picked up by the NBA in what was called a dispersal draft. They made about $2 million from that. But then what they negotiated was a 1/7 right of the remaining teams, 1/7 of their television revenue in perpetuity.
Which at the time didn't seem like a huge deal.
Exactly. And then television rights for basketball became huge over time, or during the period of perpetuity, which lasted forever. Very long story short, they started making at the end of the day, they made about $250 million, $250 million
To not have their teams in the NBA.
for a team that they didn't even want, that was dissolved. And then all the subsequent owners of those teams were like, who are we writing this gigantic check to for nothing? I bring this up because I found out 2 things while reading about these. Both of those were connected to Bernie Madoff. The Mets made the deal because they were so tied in with Bernie Madoff. They negotiated an 8% interest rate with Bobby Bonilla, but they were making 10 to 15%. So if Madoff had paid off the way they thought, and if you're keeping score at home or you're a younger person, Bernie Madoff is like the FTX guy, but like a decade and a half ago, basically.
Right.
He's the Sam Bankman-Fried of old dudes. And so if Madoff had like continued to pay out like 10 to 15%, they would have made money on this Bonilla deal. But they had all these other problems, and the Bonilla deal is just kind of this constant reminder of it. Also come to find out, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, the Silness brothers, who own the Spirit team, which is one of the best deals of all time, they put their money in Madoff. And it's not really clear how much of their money they lost to Madoff. And we'll link, if you're interested in this kind of thing, I'll link 2 articles about it. There's a great video essay by ESPN, which breaks down the Bobby Bonilla deal and says like why the Mets did it. At the time, it wasn't a bad thing. And sometimes you can't quantify these things, like the Mets going and building a World Series team right after the Bonilla deal. Like, how do you put a price tag on what that's worth?
It's weird you get those deals that like when you put it together, everyone goes, yeah, this all makes sense. And then 20 years down the road, everyone left is going, what is this thing?
But there's got to be a billion deals like that pay off or just fine. You know?
Sure. And you hear about the ones that stick around because they're wild.
Well, there's also a darker side to this too, which is like, and I'd be curious what the contract looked like. If you do something with a former athlete and you're doing something that's on the calendar 25, 30 years from now, essentially, there's got to be a factor in there for he could die, right?
Right, like we might get out of this paying a lot less.
That could be a possibility. And usually the way that people will always say, well, it'll go to his estate. Not necessarily. A lot of times what people will do in that position is they will insure their estate. They'll get out an insurance policy. So it gets really deep with this financial planning.
Sure. And I'm sure it also comes down to like what's in the contract.
But this is a lesson to everybody. Bobby Bonilla, it's great because a lot of people use sports as a touchstone for other things. It's a gateway for people to learn about interest and patience and time. And Bobby Bonilla is reaping the benefits of that. I mean, it's not like the Mets won the World Series and then immediately tried to sell their team, Ashley.
Right. Which is the crazy thing that's happening in sports today. And that is that the Boston Celtics just won their 18th championship for the NBA. And then
is that right? Do they have 18 of those bad boys?
they do now.
Wow.
They do now. So congratulations on your 18th. Gonna have to, here's what's happening. They have to buy some new shelves, Bernie, for their new trophies. And that's the owners, it's sent them broke. They can't afford the new shelves. So
as a quick aside here, I heard a crazy stat when they won the NBA championship this year, I should say. That it was the longest the city of Boston had gone without a championship in something like the 5-year drought they had between championships was the longest they had ever gone in like the last 40 years without the city having a championship across all sports.
My heart bleeds for them.
I know, right? Fuck off.
Well, the owners of the Boston Celtics are putting the team up for sale now. So I guess they're like, we got our championship.
Sell high.
It could be another 5 years. Sell high.
I mean, those championships are worth so much money. It's one of the like famous like gotchas of sports is when you see like the team that didn't win the Super Bowl and you see all their merch that they printed just in case they won.
Right. That it would have been like, it is worth it for them still to print that stuff just in case.
It's better to like burn the unused merchandise than to have the unrealized opportunity of not being ready to put the merch out to market straight away.
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is a big money deal.
I wonder if legally they can't sell it because I would totally buy, I would buy an Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup championship shirt this year. I would do that. Why not?
It'd be fun.
It's like an alternate timeline thing, but they probably legally can't do it.
So the interesting thing about the Celtics thing, too, is they've just locked in a bunch of their core players. So that includes Jason Tatum, who got the largest contract in league history today, is a 5-year, $315 million deal. And
Wait. One more time on that. I got to hear this.
Jason Tatum just got a contract for a 5-year, $315 million deal. And Derek White got a 4-year, $125.9 million extension. So it's...
Fuck. Wow.
Right?
That's a lot of money.
And then and now the owners
$30 million a year.
Are like, well, and we're selling. But the players got their contracts in place. So really interesting.
To be fair, I was reading multi-billion-dollar valuations of the Boston Celtics. Do they have that in front of you right now?
I don't have that in front of me right now.
I
but I'll
read
look it up.
everything from like 4.8 billion to 5.9 billion. I read a lot of sports business numbers last night.
I do have here the record sale price for an NBA team is the $4 billion Matt Ishbia paid in 2022 for the Phoenix Suns.
Wow.
So let me see if I
You
can
know who
get
comes
an
out
idea.
smelling like a rose in all this stuff to me?
Who?
Is Mark Cuban. Do you know how Mark Cuban made his money?
How did Mark Cuban make his money?
Ashley, you're an old school internet person. You use the internet.
That guy, gotta see where this is going.
Mark Cuban had a company called Broadcast.com, which
Okay.
he sold to Yahoo. So this is from Wikipedia.
Okay.
Broadcast.com was an internet radio company founded as AudioNet in September 1995. Todd Wagner and Mark Cuban later led the company's daily operations, which was eventually sold to Yahoo on April 1st, 1999 for $5.7 billion,
Holy shit. In 1999.
making it the most expensive acquisition that Yahoo has made. I'm going to fast forward through a lot of stuff here. 1999. Yahoo shut down much of its broadcast services in 2002.
Oh my God.
And
so,
Broadcast.com has been since discontinued.
wow. They paid, did you say that was $5.7 billion?
Yeah, $5.7 billion.
And I feel $5.7 billion in 1999 money is a very different thing. That's insane.
Yahoo's high-profile purchase of Broadcast.com has since been called one of the worst internet acquisitions. Yeah, but he went on to buy the Dallas Mavericks. What the hell is the legacy of Broadcast.com? Did you ever go visit Broadcast.com, Ash?
Never that I can think of.
That's an example of a guy who cashed out when the .com stuff was going high and then took the money and immediately put it to use for something else.
And put it into something that was growing and continued to snowball that one.
And now he's Shark Tanking.
Shark Tank.
Shark Tanking
Doing
all day.
Shark Tank. So as far as I can tell here, the latest valuation for the Boston Celtics is $4.7 billion. So Elon Musk can buy 10 of the Celtics with his pay package.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, I was going to say with what he could have paid for Twitter.
Well, let's put it this way. The $4.7 billion is a lot closer to the $44 billion or whatever he paid for Twitter than it is to any amount of money I can actually conceive.
Yeah. Yeah. And while we're talking about all this, it is July 2nd. So don't forget, guys, rent is due. Fuck. God damn, dude. God damn.
And speaking of selling high, did you see there was a weird lawsuit thing against the GameStop stock guy?
No, I didn't. You had mentioned this. So Roaring Kitty, what's the name of the guy?
His real name is Keith Gill. So this is the GameStop meme guy. This is the guy who's really responsible or he's sort of like held up as like the guy who made the GameStop short squeeze happen in 2021. And then he went dormant sort of for 3 years. He came back in May to social media for the first time in 3 years and posted a meme, a meme.
Do you know what it was?
What was it?
It was the gamer meme where they're sitting upright.
Oh, and then they like lean forward?
Right. That's it. That's all he posted. And that would cause a huge run on GameStop.
Right. Well, there was a lawsuit filed against him on Friday for basically accusing him of putting together a pump and dump scheme for GameStop stock. I'm going to read you a little bit of this article from Reuters. By the way, I got what?
I'm just laughing.
It's so weird.
Of course, that's what it is.
So this is from Reuters. This was a proposed class action accused Gill of securities fraud. It was filed on Friday in Brooklyn, and then weirdly enough, it was voluntarily withdrawn on Monday. So yesterday, they filed Friday, withdrew it and didn't specify why on Monday. I have no idea what's going on here. It seems like there's, I don't know, a lot going on like behind the scenes or like under the ripples in the water.
I can't help but wonder sometimes with some of these lawsuits if it's one of those things where it's like, somebody's going to sue this guy at some point.
So may as well be us.
Might as well be us. Somebody takes a shot and then they go into like some level of diligence and they're just like, this doesn't stand a fucking chance.
This is going to fall apart. Yeah,
because it's not free to go to court.
No, it's not. Lawyers cost a lot of money.
That meter starts ticking the moment their phone starts ringing.
Yeah. So what this says is that investors led by Martin Radev, who lives in the Las Vegas area, said that Gill manipulated GameStop securities between May 13th and June 13th by quietly accumulating large quantities of stock and call options, then dumping the holdings after he came out of his social media hiatus, and that bumped the GameStop stock up. They said that Gill's activities caused the price to gyrate wildly, generating millions in profit for him at their expense, and that he was well aware of his ability to manipulate the market for GameStop securities and the benefits that he could reap by doing so. So that's what the lawsuit was. This was withdrawn yesterday, so stay tuned. I guess they have the ability to refile it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. But it's almost as strange as the whole GameStop saga itself.
Right. Are you familiar with the meme online of the leopards ate my face party?
I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I voted for the leopards eating people's faces party, but I didn't think leopards would eat my face.
Yes, I am familiar with that. It does seem, perhaps a little bit like that. But who knows? There may actually be just GameStop investors out there who are very confused by this whole thing. I don't know who those people are.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Can I talk about something personal for a second, since we've been talking about world news stuff? Is there anything else going on in the world that we should be talking about?
Not in the world that we should be talking about.
We'll link it, so you should read about it. But we obviously, with the debates, we got deeper into politics than we usually do. But everyone should go read about the recent Supreme Court ruling. And we may talk about it later this week, because it's a landmark ruling that they made that takes a lot of rights away from regulators and puts them in the hands of court. I do think it's something you should be aware of. So once you read about it in the link dump, if you haven't heard about it, it's everywhere. But if you haven't heard about it, you should definitely be aware of it. I do want to talk about, though, personal story here. I went to Aberdeen yesterday.
Yes.
Because I had to go run an errand down in Aberdeen. And I couldn't take my car because my car was part of the errand. It was being worked on. We're going to talk about airport and their construction here for a second.
Buckle up.
I didn't go to the airport, but there are times when I have to fly out of the Aberdeen airport.
Yes.
It's one of the airports that is available to us to fly from. I mean, by the way, it's amazing to live in this part of the world. It's like $150 to fly to Amsterdam. If you go down to Glasgow, it's like $30 to fly round trip to Dublin.
I know you made a joke once about wanting to go to Glasgow, to get on a plane to Dublin, to go get a Guinness, and then come back, and it would be less than the price of most day outings.
It costs less than taking an Uber from our old house in Austin down to 6th Street where the bars are, is what I calculated to fly round trip to Dublin. And the best part is it'll be, you can meet Taylor Swift at the bar to, fly your jet to go to get a Guinness in Ireland.
Maybe you can hop a ride and then it's free.
Another thing I love, like the cheap airline travel to go to different countries here, Ashley.
Yes.
One of the other things I love about this country is the amazing train system that we have to go from city to city. It's like you just get on a train and you're in a different city. And it's amazing. And I know people who grew up in Europe and other parts of the world, like, that's the way that works. We grew up in America. It doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work that way at all.
Doesn't work like that. However, if I may, I have a bone to pick. The Aberdeen airport has a train that goes through our part of the world, and it ends. It's the Aberdeen Dice Airport. You can look this up on Google Maps, spelled D-Y-C-E, Dice.
You seem a little agitated over there, Bernie.
There's a Dice.
What could be wrong with the Aberdeen Dice airport train stop?
There is a Dice train station which stops. I did the map on Google Maps. It's like 0.3 miles away from the airport. No big deal. 0.3 miles. That's not so bad.
No, seems like it makes a lot of sense to have a train stop at the airport, right?
But this is like the Bobby Bonilla of walking distance to the airport, because for some unknown fucking reason, they built the train station on the runway tarmac side of the airport. So you can't, it's the one part of the airport you're not allowed to walk across. One part.
Right to Rome? Yeah, it doesn't cover the tarmac.
I don't know if you're familiar with airports at home or airplanes, but the runway is where the airplanes are. So you got to walk all the way. It's a 1 hour walk from the airport's train station to the airport. It might be faster to walk from the house to go to the airport. I don't get it. I don't know why they built it that way. They'd had the train tracks or just flip the airport. I don't know which one came first, but I don't know why they did this. It makes no sense whatsoever. You got to take a cab from the airport's train station to get to the airport.
That's the thing. I can think of like, okay, the train station needs to be here, the airport needs to be here, it needs to be aligned this way. That's fine. We can work with this. Here's our options. We can go ahead and we can put one of those cool, like, you know, the underground, like moving walkways like they do under
I hear you,
LAX or
sister.
something like that, just right under the tarmacs, right? Just right under the runway. And that way everyone who goes from the train to the airport gets to be like, we're underneath the planes right now. And it's one of those cool things. Or you're like, you know what, that seems like a lot. We can't do it. Seismic activity, whatever. I don't know. We can't do it. So let's go
Taylor
ahead.
Swift's in town.
Taylor Swift's in town. We're going to just, we'll run a shuttle back and forth instead. It's what, 0.3 miles, maybe a mile as the bus flies.
2.5 miles. That's how far you have to walk.
You know, so we'll just do it. And then, you know, every 5 minutes, bam, shuttle back and forth. Easy peasy, right? No, they don't run a shuttle. So you know what the advice is if you want to get from the train station at the airport to the airport is take a taxi.
Yeah. Get a cab. Take a train, then take a cab, then take a plane.
Take a 1 mile cab.
Somebody's killing it.
From the train station to the airport that you can see from the time you're off the train station. It's weird. It's wild. I don't get it.
I didn't even fly yesterday. I just went passed through that train station
And you're still
yesterday.
mad.
And it just made me mad on the way. Fucking city
So
planning.
pull this up on Google Maps and let's get a plan in. Let's get a proposal in. You know, it's not the only airport that does this. I think the Inverness Airport is the same thing. I think they fairly recently introduced a train station at the airport, and it's also not at the airport.
What?
It's like it's the same thing. It's like across. It's like you have to go
That's
around
not
like
true.
a couple of different roundabouts to get from the train station that's at the airport to the airport. Same sort of deal.
All right. While we're talking about this, actually, I'm going to get all this out.
Okay, this is therapy.
Yesterday, I was in Aberdeen, and they have this thing where it's crosswalk, okay?
Okay.
So we cross the street by walking. It's what you do, okay?
Okay,
You push the button, the little man turns
you
green.
wait for it to go, and then you walk.
Exactly. Little man turns green. He's like, you can walk now. You're like, thank you. And he goes, no problem. Have a great day. And you walk. You go across the street. That's the end of the transaction. Somebody at some point decided, and I don't know what this is. It's always on boulevards. What's a boulevard to you, by the way?
Is that a separated street?
Right,
Like
so
where there's a raised median, something
There's a
that's
median.
It's not just a painted line saying don't cross this line. There is a physical barrier making sure that you don't do that.
Right. When you're in a car, right? But when you're on foot, a la pied, you just fucking zoop and you walk across this thing, whatever it is. Somebody has built these things in major cities, and I want some city planner out there who listens to this, please explain this to me. Some civil engineer. I cross the street. I go on the median. I'm going to try to explain this. It's a thing. It's like a thing.
Yes,
It's like a corral.
Right, like fences protecting you from oncoming traffic.
And like when I'm crossing the street, I want to go that way. I just want to go that way.
You just want to go straight across the street.
Now they go into this thing. You got to go that way. Then you go this way. And then you go back that way. Like you have to am I explaining this right? You
It sends you further up the road or something. Like it's not, you don't just have this waiting area. You have a waiting area that will shuffle you to in a sideways direction. For why?
I can't walk straight across the street. I got to walk over to the median, then walk to the right way.
And there's furthermore,
and then go this way again.
There's something about the timing of doing this that makes it so you cannot cross the entire street, the boulevard, whatever it is. You cannot cross it all in one light.
You got to hang out in the middle of the street in this thing, in this little corral.
For like a light, and then you have to catch the next light for the
did
other
this?
half of the street crossing.
What's the purpose of this thing? What does it do?
Maybe they're maybe they hate pedestrians.
Maybe. It's a bean counters. This is city planners. Somebody sat down in a meeting and said, look, what do people like about going that way? They like going that way. That's the best part. What if I told you we could have them go that way twice? And then they'll like it. They'll like it twice as much.
Double happy.
It's double the that ways. They'll be happy. And let me tell you this. This is going to sound amazing. In order to go that way twice, all you have to do is add one this way. You go that way, then you go this way, then you go that way.
For the small price of one this way.
Do the math on it. Two that ways, one this way. You are netting a free that way.
It's the Bobby Badilla of street crossings.
Bobby Badilla. Look, we know you want to cross the street. Let's defer that till 5 minutes from now. and you'll get double the that ways. So dumb. I mean, we're not even explaining this right. We're not even explaining it right. So dumb. I'm done. Who are we thanking today for today's episode?
All right, let's get out of here. Today, I would like to thank Jason Rapchinyak and James Murphys for sponsoring this episode of Morning Somewhere. Thank you both for sponsoring the show at patreon.com/Morning Somewhere.
All right, well, that does it for us today. One day past Bobby Bonilla Day, July 2nd, 2024. We will be back to talk to you tomorrow. We hope you'll be here as well.
Bye, everybody.